On the southern shore of Lake Michigan, in Lake County, Indiana, once stood the proud Magic City of steel. In the 1950s, Gary was an economic giant. Nearly 30% of all jobs in northwest Indiana came from its steel mills. And at the height of the industry in 1969, national steel output was worth nearly $71 billion. Gary wasn't just a city, it was a symbol of American power. But today, that symbol has crumbled. Gary's population has fallen from 180,000 in the 1960s to under 69,000, a staggering 62% drop. In 2019, it was named America's most miserable city, with 36% of residents living in poverty, crime rates soaring, and whole neighborhoods emptied out. Nearly 7,000 buildings sit vacant, and 37% of the city is blighted. Once built on steel, Gary is now haunted by its ruins. What kind of economic disaster destroys a city this fast? Founded in 1906 by the U.S. Steel, Gary was designed for one purpose: to fuel America's industrial dreams. Named after company chairman Elbert Henry Gary, the city grew around the massive Gary Works plant, the heartbeat of the community. Workers from across the country, including African-American families from the Great Migration and European immigrants, moved in for steady steel jobs. By 1960, Gary had grown into a thriving city filled with schools, churches, theaters, and a strong middle class. Landmarks like the Grand Palace Theater and the towering City Methodist Church reflected the city's confidence and wealth. Broadway bustled with department stores and elegant buildings. Gary was just a full expression of the American dream. But the dream began to fracture in the 1960s. Global competition brought cheaper imported steel. Automation reduced the need for workers. Layoffs hit thousands of families, and the city's single industry economy began to crumble. When Richard Hatcher became Gary's first black mayor in 1967, the existing racial tension accelerated the pre-planned white flight. White families that were able to buy homes freely in the suburbs left quickly. Black residents, restricted by redlining and limited resources, had fewer options. The result was a collapsing tax base, closing businesses, and growing urban decay. The population fell sharply, and abandoned homes began to spread across the city. Today, roughly a third of Gary's buildings are empty or blighted. Landmarks like the Memorial Auditorium burned and were left to rot. The City Methodist Church, once able to seat 3,000 occupants, now stands as an ivy-covered skeleton. Gary's cleanup is painfully slow. Under a 1998 RCRA corrective action order, U.S. Steel has already removed 800,000 cubic yards of contaminated sediment from the Grand Calumet River and installed groundwater pumps and slurry walls to stop toxic flows. Despite this, soil and groundwater continue to carry heavy metals, volatile organics, and PCBs from a century of steelmaking. The sheer size of the Gary Works, a 4,000-acre facility, means the environmental burden touches many neighborhoods. Meanwhile, the Grand Calumet River, adjacent to the mill, has long been classified as an EPA area of concern due to its toxic sediment and industrial legacy. Air pollution remains a serious issue. Gary Works is one of Indiana's largest sources of greenhouse gases and heavy metal emissions, contributing to respiratory illnesses in nearby residents. These environmental challenges fall heaviest on communities already burdened by poverty and segregation. Neighborhoods historically denied investment now sit closest to contaminated rivers, abandoned factories, and polluted industrial corridors. Many homes were built before modern safety standards and contain lead paint and aging asbestos, creating long-term risks for children and elderly residents. Limited access to healthcare deepens the problem, making chronic respiratory issues more common. These public health struggles reflect decades of inequality, where geography and history combine to shape the lived reality of thousands. As jobs disappeared and infrastructure deteriorated, crime rose sharply, further accelerating the city's decline. Poverty deepened, and whole neighborhoods fell silent. Streets that once echoed with factory whistles and children playing now lie quiet and forgotten. As Gary's tax base collapsed, the school district racked up more than $100 million in long-term debt, prompting a state takeover in 2017. Under state control, many buildings closed as enrollment shrank from around 16,000 a decade earlier to just about 6,000 students. The state-appointed emergency manager cut costs aggressively, but the community felt stripped of its voice and elected board power was removed. After control was returned in 2024, local leaders immediately raised alarms over House Bill, which would convert Gary's schools into charter schools. The fight reflects more than money. It's about preserving Gary's identity, with parents and officials warning that charter conversion could erase historical school assets and weaken the district's future. The Gary Urban Enterprise Association was once charged with managing redevelopment under the state's Enterprise Zone program, but a state audit later found theft, misuse of public funds, and underreporting of revenues. Its former director and others were convicted on multiple criminal counts after prosecutors discovered excess salaries, purchases of properties outside the zone, and misused credit card spending. The scandal included the discovery of mountains of donated clothing left to rot in a warehouse instead of being delivered to the needy, a symbol of how promises of aid and redevelopment were betrayed. Ultimately, state authorities disqualified and shut down the Gary Enterprise Zone in 2006 after the extent of mismanagement became clear. The collapse of this once promising program not only wasted millions in public and private funds, but shattered trust in local institutions, leaving many residents skeptical about future revival efforts. Despite the depth of the decline, Gary is not without hope. Community groups are transforming vacant lots into gardens and gathering spaces. Federal grants are funding brownfield cleanups, new job training programs, and neighborhood redevelopment projects. Small businesses are reappearing along key corridors, and a few historic structures have begun careful restoration. The Gary Works Mill still operates, much smaller, but still alive. Community leaders fight for investment. Even the Gary Works plant, though a shadow of its past, supports new investment in safer, modern operations. Progress is slow and uneven, but these efforts reveal a city refusing to surrender, rebuilding piece by piece, driven by residents who never left. Its streets tell a story of ambition, collapse, and stubborn resilience. Gary's story shows that racial division isn't just social, it can shape the very structure of a city. Policies like redlining and unequal investment concentrated poverty, limited access to jobs and schools, and created long-lasting environmental and health hazards. True revival comes from rebuilding systems, investing in every neighborhood, and creating opportunities for all residents, ensuring a city can rise stronger and more united than before. Thank you for watching. Until the next one, peace.